Hi there, I'm Sean, and this is Stories of Mormon. Today I wanted to talk about the story of Hagoth. Uh, if you may recall, in Alma 63, we have this story with this fellow named Hagoth who disappears and is never heard from again. To get started, I actually just want to read a little bit of that story. So here we go. And it came to pass that in the 37th year of the reign of the judges, there was a large company of men, even to the amount of 5,400 men, with their wives and their children, departed out of the land of Zarahemla into the land which was northward. And it came to pass that Hagoth, he being an exceedingly curious man, therefore he went forth and built him an exceedingly large ship on the borders of the land Bountiful, by the land Desolation, and launched it forth into the west sea, by the narrow neck which led into the land northward. And behold, there were many of the Nephites who did enter therein, and did sail forth with much provisions, and also many women and children. And they took their course northward. And thus ended the 37th year. And in the 38th year, this man built other ships, and the first ship did also return, and many more people did enter into it. And they also took much provisions, and set out again to the land northward. And it came to pass that they were never heard of more, and we suppose that they were drowned in the depths of the sea. And it came to pass that one other ship also did sail forth, and whither she did go we know not. So, this story seems like an interesting footnote. They sailed off, and then they disappeared. So we don't really get any closure on this in the Book of Mormon, but it is interesting because there is a book that it's been around for years, called the Nemenhah record. And so I've got one of these. It is quite a significant volume, and the first book in it is the Book of Hagoth. And this Book of Hagoth, if I can zoom in a little bit here, this is the beginning of the record that is produced from these people who branch off with Hagoth. So if we want to continue real quickly, I'm going to read just the first page of this record. And, let's think about what was just over here. And I'm actually going to leave this up so that we can ponder exactly how these stories line up. So, the Book of Hagoth, the shipbuilder and founder of the ancient Nemenhah. Behold, I am Hagoth, and I am waxed old. I write this book so that my generations may be kept, and so that the acts of my people may be recorded. I am the same Hagoth, the son of Nemenhah, who was the boon companion of Moroniah, and followed him in war and peace. And it was my father who was a builder of walls and battlements, who assisted Moroniah in subduing the enemies of the Nephihah, and in securing our lands and our religion and our freedom. The same was my father, and he descended from that Tzoram, who took the eldest of the daughters of Itzmael to wife, and also from Jacob, the brother of Nephi, whose father took his journey into the wilderness from Jerusalem, when Zedekiah was king, and also from that Simeon, who was a Tuaket of the temple, who took his journey with Mulek when some of these are a little bit rough. This name is Behnhahmon, So it's, I'm assuming that it would be Benjaminites in our normal Book of Mormon spellings. But it's Benjaminai, retreated from ruined Jerusalem, and also from that Mulek himself, who was son of Zedekiah the king. Wherefore, behold, I am descended from Eotsats, the same who was sold into Mitzrayim, and from Aharon, the brother of Motzah. I believe this is Moses in their rendering. And also from Eudah. So, Judah. Behold, I have seen much war and much peace. In the years of my life I have seen much prosperity and much poverty. I have governed my people when the Nemenhah, this is the Nemenhah rendering of the Holy Ghost, strove with them, and many received the Nemenhah and prophesied. And I have governed when many people denied the faith. Wherefore it seemed meet to my people that I should make an account of all our doings. In the year that Moroniah, that great captain of the Nephihah, died, behold, my father also died, for he had received many wounds in the wars. But my father taught me in all manner of building, and I became exceedingly accomplished in the building with wood. Now it was also in that year that many of the Nephihah began to see that those families who had not sent men into the wars to protect their liberties were filled with pride, for they were very rich because of their trade in the wars. Many could see the seeds of the downfall of our nation, and they desired to go into the Waketstitzpah, which the footnote says this is the land northward. And there were others who saw that much of the country was wasted, and yet the Nemenhah persisted. Therefore, many desired to move, as our father Nephi had moved away from a similar threat. Wherefore I built a ship, and it was after the pattern of the ship built by Nephi, except that it was much larger. Into this ship went up many of the Nephihah, and from Pa Isepwese, which the footnote says Pa, or place of mothers, feminine prefix, indicating the maternal center of habitation. Itsewe, say Puese, or they prosper, the land bountiful. So this is him describing them leaving the land bountiful. By the isthmus, they set sail into the West Sea. These Nephihah sailed following the shore northward beyond the Dakupaspa. There's a lot of footnotes to look up in here. A desert place, a place of desolation, not necessarily a desert habitat, rather a place that was once inhabited but has been abandoned. And they went down out of the ship at the mouth of a great river, which this great river, the footnote clarifies, is the mouth of the Colorado. The place where they went down out of the ship was barren in the extreme. However, and the people sent the ship and a few trusty men back to the Pa Itsepuese for provisions. So this is what we read there of they came back and then they left again. Now I, Hagoth, being very concerned for our brethren and their families, who had made the journey into the north by sea, I went to Tsiblon to get the word of the creators concerning them. Now Tsiblon was also concerned, for many had also taken their journey northward by land, and he went to the peacemaker and inquired of him. And the peacemaker commanded that I should send provisions unto the Nephihah in the way Kistitzbah, both by the sea, West Sea, and by the East Sea. Yea, I did build fleets of ships, by which many of the Nephihah and their families removed into the way Kistitzbah, and Ziblon commanded that copies be made of all the writings of our fathers, that they should be carried with those journeying into the way Kistitzbah, so that the people should not dwindle in unbelief. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm going to pull up a map, and we're going to think about this. So we've got this map of North America, using this one that's part of the Wikimedia Commons. But just for fun, we're going to think about this. So there's been a lot of people have talked about the different models for where the Book of Mormon happens. And it really sounds like, if you listen to Chief Midegah, he talks about the Book of Mormon happening where you have Central America being where Lehi lands with his family. And when they go north, he describes that as kind of going more diagonal up toward the Great Lakes. And what we have here with Hagoth is sailing north and finding his way up to the mouth of the Colorado River. Now, this is interesting because the people who went on foot, it looks like they went up more across the plains directly. For people who sailed, there are definitely significant natural barriers to getting across over to where the people on the east side went. But this is just kind of an introduction and is meant to show how this lines up with what we see in Alma 63. Now, this continues, and there are some great stories in here. They have the miracle of the fish, which I would really love to, make its own video about. And that one is where, basically, as they follow the Colorado River, they find themselves in the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon turns out to be quite a problem for them because they can't drink the water of the river, and they run out of water, and they're running out of food. But, the short version of the story is a fish saves them. Now, I won't get into more detail than that because we really want to keep moving on this. But the important thing is we have this record, and the record has an interesting origin. What is presented is that this was translated by people who are descendants of these Nemenhah people that separated from the Nephites. And basically, where they go is we have, if I can get this to zoom in a little bit. So they come up the Colorado River, they get up above the Grand Canyon, and then they make some settlements over here in what would be southeastern Utah. And, once again, I'm relying on the footnotes to clarify where the translators of this record believe these things took place. But they live there for a while, but they keep having a few Gadianton problems. because the influence of the Nephites is a bad influence on them, and they otherwise were able to solve the Gadianton problem by changing the way they select their judges, by having the mothers of their people select the judges, or at least they did the nominating of candidates for judges, which really took the main ways that people were seeking for power and kind of disabled them. Because when the mothers are doing it, it's a whole thing. I will also need to read that on a separate occasion. But suffice it to say, they figured out how to live peacefully and not have people kind of take over their government for their own gain, which is something we really should take notes on in our country. But in order to further sever ties with the Nephites, they wanted to get off of the Colorado River. And this book of Hagoth describes how they cross a great wasteland. And after crossing the great wasteland, they end up in a valley that is reasonably comfortable with good water and salt deposits. And once again, in the footnotes, they describe this as being in central Utah. And so the general area is the valley where Salina and Gunnison and Redmond are found in Utah. And the supposition is that the salt deposits that they are taking advantage of are actually it's the exposed salt dome out in Redmond. But this is just kind of a beginner, just to get introduced what this Nemenhah record is. And I really do want to cover a number of more things in this. The more I read, the more amazing this is to me. So we've got this book of Hagoth, and then we continue on into the book of Hagmeni, who's the son of Hagoth, and then the book of Sanempet. These are just, Hagoth's son, Hagoth's grandson. And then we get to the book of Ohagua, if I even said that right. I mean, they're unfamiliar names. My apologies. If you are someone who knows the proper pronunciation, definitely leave a comment. Figure out how to get in touch with me. It would be really cool to start getting these more correct. But we have an account of them and all the things that happen to them. When Samuel the Lamanite goes to deliver his message to the Nephites, on his way home, he gets stuck basically in the Utah area and spends the winter with them. And so we get an account of that. There are also, there's about 45-ish pages or a little more than 45 pages of the writings of Samuel or Samuel the Lamanite. It is notable that part of what makes the Nemenhah is it was a mix of 12 Nephite and 12 Lamanite families. And they wanted to have a new name so that they weren't just simply, splitting up into ites again. And they also were, as a part of their travels, they were keeping all things in common. And what they ended up doing is they picked a new name for themselves, which simply meant the people. Now, what's interesting about that is that we've seen people try to do this before, and I think the impulse they're acting on is a good impulse, but it's been done more in societies where the government has been a communistic government where it's Gadiantans still running the show, but then using this mythology of we're the people rising up. And so it kind of, it diverts from what they were actually, when we've seen it in modern days, it has diverted from what we actually get to see be successful here in the Nemenhah record when we read it. So society has definite scaling problems. We observe in this record that they don't have towns larger than, or cities larger than 150 to 200 families, because there's just something that breaks down when you scale a community larger than that. In fact, when Moroni finishes gathering up and hiding the records of the Book of Mormon, he goes home to the Nemenhah people, and he lives with them and has additional writings that he makes that are here in the book. And it is extremely interesting to see his commentary on exactly what went wrong, and also what kind of broke the Nemenhah society when they were preparing to potentially defend themselves if the Lamanites turned toward them to see if they had anything that they could take. So there's a lot of really interesting lessons. I mean, just the fact that Lamanites end up starving because they've forgotten how to live without just plundering people. Like, I feel like our society has this problem where, like, we lose track of how to support ourselves. Like, we don't know how to do things that are useful. And so many of us can have a tendency to, basically be dependent on the labor of others in order to be able to survive. And we probably would also starve the way that the Lamanites starved after they exterminated the Nephites. So, a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of teasers for what's to come. I mean, don't even get me started on the creation story. That is amazing. And something is definitely missing from the creation story in our tradition, because if you have a creation story without the mother being a significant part of it, you are missing something. Hers is the power to make life. And having a creation story that does not include her is leaving a lot of stuff just not mentioned. So maybe someday, I don't know if I'll ever be able to make a video about that one, but I'm going to go ahead and say that you should take a look at the Book of the High Place, or the Tuhul Numen, as it's written in this more recent edition. There are PDFs that are available. This PDF has been, the place I usually go to fetch it is Zion Media has their repository that they call Cumorah, and I will actually leave a link to that in the description. But I would strongly recommend to anyone that they read this Nemenhah record. It really it goes very well with what we have in the Book of Mormon, and it clarifies a lot and gives a lot more depth. And even some of the stories just are great illustrations of principles that I think we completely fail to consider. But I think this will do it for today. For getting started, for just introducing what this Nemenhah is. And I'm going to have to figure out how to really talk about all the rest of the things that are in here. But I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching.